All right, hello everyone. My name is Kevin, and I'd like to welcome you all to our latest Novedge webinar series episode. Today we are partnering up with none other than Pixologic's own Paul Gaboury, along with the rest of the Pixologic team, Solomon and Kyle. In today's presentation, Paul will extensively cover the new ZRemesher along with new brushes, Trim and Crease. He'll also be walking us through with a discussion on how polygroups with DynaMesh can create a unique workflow for design. For those who aren't aware, Paul is Pixologic's 3D product development manager. He'd worked with several studios such as Legacy Effects, Disney Animation, Bad Robot, Pixar, Hasbro, Sideshow Collectibles, and many more on enhancing their digital sculpting pipeline with ZBrush. He is also involved in all aspects of ZBrush development and continues to work with artists around the world offering support. Today's presentation is about 40 minutes long, and afterwards we'll have a brief Q&A session where Paul will answer your questions live. Feel free to submit your own to us at any time into the chat window below. Before we get going with the presentation, here's an overview of what we do at Novedge. The Novedge webinar series is brought to you by Novedge.com. As one of the largest online design software stores, we offer a huge assortment of software solutions that cater to virtually every designer's need. If you're interested in purchasing the latest version of Pixologic's ZBrush 4R6, it is available from us in the United States as a digital delivery. For more product information, you are welcome to call and speak with our sales specialist, Bob Thayer. You can reach him by his email address, bob@novedge.com. ZBrush website. Also, Paul, I think you might want to make a plug here about all that ZBrush Pixologic.com has to offer. So take it away.
I'm up?
Yes, for now.
Oh.
Just to plug the website.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Thunderdome. 4 people enter the meeting. Several more come. Well, let me show my screen. Let me make.
Oh, wait. We're just plugging the website for now. Marketing material.
What?
We're plugging the website, ZBrush 4R6 for now. But yeah, okay, so if you guys aren't aware of what ZBrush4R6.com's website is all about, I think now would be a good time to hear about it. A lot of you guys are familiar with the communities. Paul, what can they find in the community alongside the forums as well?
Well, there's the tutorials, obviously, which probably many people are very used to. If you're going on to Learn ZBrush, you'll see that there's video tutorials. We've also made quick links to the things below. We've even made a couple little videos for what ZBrush Central is all about. So in our online community, when you click that button now, you'll actually go to a page where there's a nice video that Louis, Solomon, and Kyle have worked on. It's really great going through what ZBrush Central is really about, especially for those new coming people. For those that are in the meeting as well, this is a great resource for you to learn from, inspire, get to know people, get to know the community. Our community is very much artistic community from different fields. ZBrush is used in probably about 10 different industries. So you get a whole branch of people on the community sharing ideas, which then leads to the classroom, which the guys here also are very hard working on putting together to learn about ZBrush, whether it be the basics or specific workflows. And then for those that are new to ZBrush that are in this meeting, I highly recommend the Getting Started Guide, which I'll be happy to show some of these links to when I start, when you see my mind.
Cool. Very smooth introduction to the website. I encourage you guys to check it out. So afterwards, yeah, do check it out. There's a lot of resources over there too as well. And I also do want to mention that if we have a lot of questions, and I think we're going to have a lot of questions, I want to recommend and let you guys know that we'll probably share the questions and the answers from Paul at blog.novedge.com. And this is also a good way to get a glimpse at who is changing the world of design one step at a time. So I encourage you guys to check it out. Every week we have interviews which shine a light on those innovators whose work break out from the norm. So for more information, you guys are encouraged to check out at blog.novedge.com. And I also want to, I looked at the registrants, and we have a lot of people who are Rhino users as well. So Novedge's online community for Rhino users, rhinojungle.com. It's a place for designers and professionals to join in and to discuss the latest Rhino news, to catch up on headlines, and you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter. So for more information, please visit rhinojungle.com today. Coming up next week, we have the new Artlantis 5. It is a powerful, easy-to-use 3D rendering application developed for architects and designers, and is ideal for quick and easy high-resolution 3D renderings, animations, QuickTime VR objects, and iVisit 3D panoramas. This webinar is an exclusive first look at many of the new features in Artlantis 5, which goes on sale September 3rd, 2013. Objects Online General Manager Chris String will be joining us next week to present this next webinar. So for more information, head on over to novedge.com/webinar/85. And if for any chance you have to leave early, no worries. Today's webinar is being recorded, so if you want to rewatch episode 84 in its entirety, as always, you can find it on our Novedge webinar series channel through Vimeo and YouTube. With that said, Paul, this is the actual presentation now. Woohoo!
Okay.
Here we go. Take it away.
We're ready.
Sweet.
Fabulous. Okay. Hold on, I got to move some screens here. Make center. Okay.
There we go. Cool. Enjoy, guys.
Have fun. Okay, so everyone can see my screen all right? So right now it's the Pixologic website up, so I want to make sure, first of all, let's get the technical stuff out of the way and make sure you guys can actually see everything. Okay, so really quick, just to highlight again about the site. So Learn ZBrush right here, okay, is going to take you into our Z Classroom, which those that are new in this webinar, I strongly recommend starting here just to get your juices flowing, getting some videos. We get some artists from around different industries. Like, for example, right now David Bentley did car design videos. Louie and Solomon on the team also make videos. But this is a great place to start. So you have the Getting Started section. We just recently put up some new Z-Sphere videos that Louie did right here. So anytime you want to view any of these lessons, you just click on the lesson plan, and you'll pop up and get all the videos here. Okay? So this is a great location for even not just new people, but even advanced users, because we're constantly putting videos up, and we currently are working on some more videos right now. I would also recommend that people download this Getting Started guide right here. This is a great guide for those that are kind of somewhat used to ZBrush, or beginner with ZBrush, or never used ZBrush ever. It's a great Getting Started guide. It's meant to be very simple, and what I mean by that is not so wordy, because let's face it, we're all artists, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm not a big reader. I'm a big skimmer over and then clicking links. So it's full of links to tutorials and pieces, so I would strongly recommend that. And then as you see, as you go through here, you have a lot of tutorials that you can look at. And then, of course, on top of that, we have ZBrush Central, okay, which is a great forum. Again, about 10 different industries involved in here. Great inspiration, great help in here. In essence, this is like kind of like your own support between users. We also have been recapping SIGGRAPH 2013. So these are the live demos, which we had some amazing demonstrations this year. You can see how busy we were at the booth. We had Blizzard, we had Sony, we had Sony Santa Monica, to be exact. So we're putting up these recaps of all this. We had Walt Disney World, we had Epic Games, Sony Santa Monica, and we had some great artists from id, Ubisoft, Aaron Sims Company. Joe Mena does a lot of stuff going over rapid prototyping, creating figurines, and statuettes. So great resource, okay? So I'd strongly recommend jumping on here from time to time, too, and if not every day, and taking a look. I know we're on here every day seeing what people are putting up, and it inspires us to keep developing and moving with ZBrush as well. So what I want to cover today is ZBrush. Welcome. Now I want to cover some of the new features, and I'm going to have a little fun because I've been looking at what people are doing as far as a living that are joined in this webinar. So I'm kind of going to throw some things on here. I know I had a request. I'm going to go over some toon shading at the end, so I know Yara, you're in here, so remind me about that when we get close to it. But the first thing that I want to start with is the ZRemesher, because there's already been questions about that. And I will get to the hard surface part of the ZRemesher too, and then I want to go through a little bit of a workflow of hard surface, and I want to show a couple other little things. So we're going to start with first, I just want to make sure that you guys have good feedback as far as my video goes. So I'm just moving the sphere from left to right, and now right to left, and then left to right. How's everyone's feedback? Everyone doing all right as far as that goes? Because I know we got people from all over the world in here. Okay. So we've got a lot of looks good, looks good. LK, also remind me about the wall thickness, okay? At the end, don't let me forget that, and I'll show a little trick that you can do. Okay, so I want to start with the ZRemesher. I want to start with a couple of just examples. When we were developing this, okay, I had some, obviously we had time to play with this, so I want to load just some tools that I've already have done ZRemesh on, just so you guys can get an idea of, well, where where this is coming from, what we've done with this. So we did a lot of testing with this and experimenting some things with this. So I'm just going to load up some tools for you guys to take a look at. So give me 1 second to load all these up. And then we'll go through all these, and that you guys can see what you can do with the ZRemesher, and then we'll dive into the actual specific features. So right now my screen's kind of frozen because I'm just loading everything up real quick for you guys. So you guys have something to look at. All right. So you guys should now see a jacket or a coat. Okay. This is from David Richardson, and I'd like to make a little note. Anything that's really cool on the screen most likely is not my sculpt. Okay. And I'll definitely point out the artist as I load these. But this is from David Richardson. Okay. So you can see this is his final sculpt that he did of a jacket. He's got a whole character, but I just wanted to highlight this because, you know, it's fabric with you know, nice folding happening through here and some folding happening through here, sitting at about 1.65 million. So what I want to do is really push the ZRemesher and see what it can do for something like this. So you can see here I just put another subtool. So 10K, 5K, 2K, that stands for the number of polygons. So if we go to 2,000 polygons, you can see what we get. Okay? And then we can go to 5,000 polygons, and then if you're something where you need to get a little bit more, maybe even lower, 2,000 polygons. So you can see even at this level, it's trying to maintain those wrinkles. So as you go up, you can see those wrinkles are really trying to be maintained. So this is what's really cool about the new ZRemesher. It's really looking at the mesh and seeing what can it do. So for example, if you look at, say, something a little more like this dragon that has scales all over the place, and it's got a lot of overlapping, right, through here. This remesher is really trying to take a look at the sculpt and seeing how the sculpt flow is going and make sure the geometry follows that flow. So if you go down to the next one, this is at 45,000. Okay, so you can see this is 45. This is the original one up here, which is 7 million. Okay, so I'll turn that off again. And then we're going down to 45. Here's 17,000, and then here's 10,000. So even at 10,000, it's really, as you can see, trying to maintain the spikes, you know, on the tips of the wings that are on this character. So then I also wanted to push this a little bit more and seeing what we can do for as far as a hard surface, because I know that got brought up. So this is, again, David Richardson, which the dragon was also David Richardson as well. Here's his little mech head helmet that he did, inspired from another artist's concept. I forget the name of the artist. So this is 7.7 million total in subtools. So he took this and just merged it all and sent it through the ZRemesher, and then this is what he got for a remesh surface. Right? So this is sitting at now 157,000 polygons total, and you can see the results that you get. So very nice, clean, equally distributed polygon. Okay? So then you have something like a workflow like this, something from Jason Martin, who did this Batman. Okay? And originally when he sculpted, he had about 22 million total. And then his workflow, he wanted to send this to rendering and in other applications, didn't want to use all the maps, so he used our Decimation Master. So you can see this is completely decimated. All right? And so now I'll give you a couple examples, and then we'll dive right into this so you guys can see. Because this is a different workflow. Okay? This is a workflow where some artists do, and especially some of the people that are in this webinar right now series, they're dealing with maybe SolidWorks or Matrix or something like that, where there is a lot of triangulated meshes. Okay? So it definitely can use the workflow of importing your triangulated mesh, just like I have with the Batman, and then using the ZRemesher to get a nice, equally distributed polygon. So again, here is the Batman that you guys have. Okay, you can see it's decimated, so all triangulated. And then here's what I got when I ran it through the ZRemesher and told it to give me about 20,000 polygons, and here's about 14,000 polygons. And then I went even lower, which is on our site. But this gives you an idea of a workflow. So you can import your meshes from Rhino, SolidWorks, you know, Matrix, wherever else that you're doing it, it's all triangulated. If you're doing something from Freeform, okay, anything like that, you can bring that in and then use the ZRemesher. Okay, so let's get into the ZRemesher so you guys can see the features and see how all this would work and all this experimenting that we were doing as we were developing would work. So I'm going to load a nice little tool here that we have. It is a monkey head. And again, this is not mine. This is from Martin Kroll. Okay? You can see I have the head. Okay? And then I have several other sub-tools. Okay? So you have the head by itself, and you can see the eyes disappear. So now, what I've done is I've actually taken his sculpt and turned it into a DynaMesh. Okay? Because this is a popular workflow for the ZBrush world now. A lot of people also from those other applications that I'm naming could also just convert something into a DynaMesh, and then it allows you free-flowing sculpting. Okay? So let's see what we can do with the ZRemesher. So let's first make sure that we have symmetry on. Okay? I know that because I can see my brush on the right and the little dot on the left. Okay? And I'm opening up my ZRemesher. Your default is going to be your target polygon count is the number of polygons that you want the ZRemesher to kind of focus on to start with. Okay? So at 5, it's 5,000. So this is by 5,000. The reason why I'm saying to start with is because I have this little adaptive button on, and with that adaptive button on, again, I'm going to go back to some of the examples. It's really trying to look at your sculpt and see, okay, wherever there is pieces of the sculpt, hey, I see that, oh, hey, there needs to be smaller polygons maybe in the ear compared to maybe on the top of the forehead because there's more detail in the ears and there's smaller areas, or maybe in the nostrils or by the mouth. So the adaptive button is really forcing the remesher to really pay attention to the sculpt and put smaller polygons where there need to be smaller polygons, say like on fingers compared to, say, the arm. Okay? So we're going to remesh this with the default saying getting around 5,000, which most likely is probably going to give me around, I would say, 8,000. Okay? So we'll see what this gives us once it's done remeshing. And right now I do have symmetry mode on, so I'm going to get symmetrical geometry on either side. Now, note to you guys is the machine I'm using is not the greatest machine in the world. I'm still, and try not to laugh, using the Core 2 Duo processor. I think I still have probably the worst computer in Pixologic now. It's a 4-year-old MacBook Pro, but here you go. You can see what I get. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is the better processor and the more RAM you have, obviously the ZRemesher is going to work faster for you. So here's what we have, just by default, and this is not a whole, it's just the way the viewer is. So let's take some snapshots of this so we can look at some differences that we can get out of this remesher, okay? Because we told it, hey, we wanted about 5,000 adaptive on. So you can see, like I said, it gave us around 8,000. Now, if you wanted to, okay, so if we undo this, and we turn adaptive off, again, we still have symmetry mode on, and remesh that, okay? This is now going to take the 5,000 polygon number and really try to put it at 5,000 polygons. So it's usually off by maybe, a couple hundred. So we might get around 5,200 or 4,800, somewhere in that range. Usually the ballpark range is 500 plus or minus polygons, which that's pretty amazing for an automatic retopologizer to get this exact and this close to the polygon count that you're looking to. So for those that are in the gaming world in this webinar, for those that are in other fields and they're trying to get just a lower cage, the big thing that you want to do is turn off the adaptive, and then now the target polygon count will be more appreciated, and then the adaptive is less appreciated. So it's not that it's not doing, still looking at the sculpt and everything else. So you can see we're at 5,319, and you can see the difference that we got. It's just giving us less polygons. So this is a very good understanding to have this so you know what you need to do depending on what industry you guys are in or what you're trying to do and how low you're trying to get. Okay? So this continues on. So I'm gonna undo this. Okay? Now, the one thing that I pointed out was we're really paying attention to your sculptural detail. So if I look at this, I really don't like what's happening in here. Maybe not a really big fan that's happening in here. I kind of like this flow. This looks good. The ear looks good. The forehead. But I'm not a big fan of what's happening around the nose and everything, let's say. So here's a little trick for you guys that you guys might be aware of. Since I'm just trying to get a low cage, am I really that, like, I got to have the detail? Well, the detail's got to be there. Right now, it's not that important. In fact, the workflow that I like to do when I'm ZRemeshing is I'd like to duplicate this. That way I have one with the sculptural detail for down the road when I want to project my sculpted detail back into the new remeshed. So what I actually also find myself doing a lot is actually smoothing out some of the details, especially when it's those little wrinkles like we have there within the nose, especially in here. There's just, the wrinkles are too much, and the ZRemesher is just paying too much attention to them for me. I kind of want to have a little bit better of a geometry flow, okay? So I'm going to smooth those out. You know, let's throw adaptive on since this one had adaptive on, and let's go ahead and see what we get now. And let's look at the difference of what we're going to get for if I smooth out a little bit of the mesh first, so that it doesn't have to pay so much attention to the noise. So if you go back, remember that dragon that I brought up? Maybe it would have been better to smooth out a bunch of those scales, and I might even got even a better, smoother geometry flow. So this is a pretty important thing to understand, which we did put this in the documentation, but if you're like me, we like to just dive in and get going because we're artists and we just want to get moving and make some cool stuff. Okay? So we're going to finish this up, okay? And we'll see what we get in the differences. Why Matthew's asking about corkscrewing topology, that's very difficult to do. Not having the spiralness and geometry, that's very, very hard to do, Matthew. Good note, though, is we are working on it, and it is something we're looking into and seeing if we can solve that. But having an automatic retopologizer is very tough to try and not having a corkscrew or a spiral effect to your geometry. And for those that don't understand what I'm saying, I'll show a quick demo since Matthew's question I just looked at. So back to this. So you can see here, see this, I kind of like this a lot better than what's in there, right? But now you kind of see I smoothed out so much that I kind of lost what's happening in the eye, right? So this is where maybe I want to go back and maybe start using something like maybe a brush, okay? So I'm going to go backwards in my undo history. We're back to this guy. And maybe now I want to switch to my brush ZRemesher guide, okay? I like to go to a relatively smaller brush size, okay, depending on the character. And then now I want to maybe use some guides to say, hey, let's make the geometry kind of wrap a little bit more around there. Now, if you want to delete any of the curves, okay, if I draw a curve and say, hey, I drew that and I don't want that, okay, I can hold down the Alt key and draw over the curve and it deletes. I can also just go to the stroke palette, okay, and I can open up, you can see there's these curve features right here, okay? So you can see right under curve function, there's a delete. When you hit that delete, it deletes all the curves, okay? So I'm going to say, hey, you know what, I kind of want to put a curve around the eye there, and I kind of want to put a curve around the eye there, right? So I'm just kind of telling it to control a little bit more of the geometry. We have a control strength right here, which is your curve strength. The higher you go, the more the remesher is going to pay attention to this curve. And in fact, if you put it at 100, it's going to try and literally put an edge flow right exactly where these curves are. The lower you go on that slider, then the less it pays attention to it. So let's see what we get with this. Okay? So we're going to take a look at what you can get with the curves. And then I want to show you guys what the adaptive size does, what your freeze border, freeze group is going to do for you, and there is another symmetry mode for the ZRemesher. That's right, there's two. We like to give you the options, and I found several times there are things that I like using the alternate symmetry mode instead of the symmetry mode that we are currently using right now. So we'll let this just finish up. Again, this is only taking, you know, on my system, taking about 25 seconds. When the slider is, when you look at your progress bar up here on the top, it'll tell you how long it took to ZRemesh that. Okay? So then there you go. So you can see we got the smoothing, right? And now I'm using the curves, and you can see I'm now really keeping those eyes a lot better now because I use the curves to help me guide. So me, compared to this one, I prefer this one. This is just me because you can see, look, all the geometry in here, the change in here and here. I kind of see all that nice and round. So you had to stop here to figure stuff out because there was sculptural detail there that it had to figure out because there was bumps in there. Now it doesn't need to figure it out. It's going to be nice and smooth. And if you want to, you guys can, you know, play with this a little bit and smooth it out even more if you want, right? It's your world. There. Happy little geometry. Okay? So that's very cool to be able to have that capability. So let's take a look at the opposite of symmetry mode. So let's go back all the way to the beginning here. Okay, let's get back to sculptural detail. Okay, and I'm just cycling through my undos right now. Right? So we're back to the sculptural detail DynaMesh version that we had here. So what I'm going to do is, again, the default. I'm going to hold the Alt key this time, though, and I'm going to click on ZRemesher. And so what that's doing is using the other symmetry, okay? So it's not using the initial symmetry where I have the symmetry on the brush itself. It's using a different algorithm, completely different, and you will get a little bit better, different results. Not necessarily better, but it's going to depend upon the model that you're using. Okay, so it's really important that you guys know this because I found myself, doing both. I would grab a mesh and say, okay, let me see what symmetry mode is better first. That's what I would do first, and go, okay, I like that symmetry mode better. And then I knew I always wanted to use that particular symmetry mode, and because on average it takes 10 to 20 seconds to do this, I have no problem experimenting because the time is going like that, right? Much like this webinar's time. So then there you go. So if you take a look specifically, again, this is the sculptural one. Look like up in here in the forehead, how different it is from that one. You look through here, how different it is from that one, right? So you do get, and in here in the nose, it's different symmetry, right, compared to this. So which one do you prefer? I'm not a big fan of that, what's happening there. I like what's happening there, right? So I wanted you guys to be aware of that, okay? And the adaptive size slider, and what that's controlling when it's working with either symmetry or not symmetry, okay, is how small are you allowing the ZRemesher to make the polygon. So what I mean by that, if you look up here in the forehead, they're kind of more like a rectangle compared to maybe you start getting in through here. It's more like squared, right? And then here you get different size, especially in the ear, you're getting different size polygons, different lengths. So that's exactly what the adaptive size is using. It's looking at the sculpt and figuring out how small polygons can I go. So at 50, it's telling ZBrush, hey, you know what? I'm going to let you make polygons 4 times smaller than the biggest polygon. You can have a longer polygon, so it means more of a rectangle polygon, okay? And that's what that slider is doing. So if you knock it down, all right, so if I take this same slider and I knock it all the way down to 0, what I'm actually telling it to do now is to try and make the polygons all equal size. So as best as you can, try to make them more all squared everywhere that you can. And don't allow as much rectangles. Keep them all relatively the same size. All right? So it's important to know that because I know there's tricks out there that people like to use to do. So it's great to understand that slider so that you can manipulate it and use it and do what you want with it. So we'll let that finish so you guys can see what happens with that, and then we'll move on to the freeze borders and freeze groups because I want to continue moving on of answering like part surface questions, okay, with some of the people that are asking some questions. So there you go. So you can see it's trying now anywhere it can. You can see, look at the ear, right? Look at the difference. And look at the polygon count, right? I still have adaptive on. I have 5,000. Look how smaller. If you remember, this was around 8,000. So this is half the polygon count because we're not allowing very much change to the polygons. Like just look in here in the nose and also right here in the ear, right? It's just not capturing it as much because we're telling it you don't get to now do that as much. Again, I can smooth this all out if I want to, right? And then that's what I'm getting. So it's important to understand that you guys can see all the power and variation that you can have in this ZRemesher. It's very cool, very powerful stuff. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning again, okay? And let's take a look at what we can do also with the ZRemesher, which is your freeze borders and your freeze groups. Let's start with something pretty simple, okay? Let's start with actually a sphere, which I like to call my Death Star. Okay, and what I'm going to do is turn it into the board ship. Here we go. Cubes, cubes, cubes for everyone. Yeah, cubes. Okay, so I'm going to use this, okay, which is just now a 6-sided cube. Okay, if I divide now with this SMT on, it's going to start creating a sphere, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this SMT off, which is smooth. Okay, and let's just add some subdivision levels here. Okay, so you can see I'm just adding polygons. So let's get to something, that's good. Now let's go one more. So 98,000. Okay, let's just delete the lower. All right, so now let's try doing a brush. Okay, let's use our slice brush. Okay, so I'm going to hold down the Control and Shift key. Okay, now some of those advanced users out there, when you're holding the Control and Shift key, you can see I get different brushes. There's different things happening with the brush. Okay? So there's different controls that you have. You have your clipping brush, you have your slicing brushes, you have the new trim brushes. And by the way, now all these brushes will work with hidden geometry and non-hidden geometry. So that's very important to understand. It made my workflow so much better. There's so many cool things that I was able to do now, and I'll pull up some examples. Now, you guys also saw that the saving project was in progress. Okay? For those that don't know, you can control your autosave in preferences. Okay? You have quick save. Right here you can say the maximum duration of minutes. So how many, every 20 minutes, in essence, I'm telling ZBrush I want you to save. So I'm going to say every 60 minutes since we're in this webinar. Okay? Restoration means if I leave ZBrush to say to go into Photoshop or my browser, ZBrush isn't being used, so it's at rest. So right now it's saying, hey, every minute it's at rest, save. However, the new version also looks at the sculpt now when it's at rest, and if there's nothing changing, it's not going to make the save. So if I move this to 600 minutes, that's 10 hours. So in essence, this is a way you could turn off your auto-saving as you move both these sliders to 600, because it's very rare are any of us in ZBrush for 10 hours straight. Okay? Some cases we are, but 10 hours is a pretty big gap. Okay? And auto-saves all go to your light box under your quick save, and then you have all your auto-saves right here. Okay? So back to using the slice brush. Okay? Holding down Control-Shift. When I draw out this brush, what it does is create an edge flow. So I get a new piece of geometry, edge line here, and we make a new polygroup. Now, one thing for the advanced people, okay, that I want to bring up, once you guys hold down Control-Shift and you start dragging out the curve, you no longer need to put your hands on the keyboard. Right now, I'm not touching the keyboard at all. Okay, and you can see I still have the slice curve. The reason why we've done this is I want you to be able to free up that left hand, or right hand if you're a lefty, hold the space bar and I can move the curve around, right? If I tap the Alt key, we can put a little, nice little bend in it, right? If I double tap the Alt key, we can make hard curves, right? So again, if I hold down the Control-Shift key, all I have to do is click on the document. That makes the line come alive. So that way I can hold the space bar, hold the Shift key, and you can see it snaps to certain degrees, right? Or I can tap the Alt key or double tap the Alt key. Okay? This is very important to understand because I know a lot of people will still email it, Paul, how do you hold down the Control-Shift key and the Alt key and the space bar? Why don't you want to do that? Well, you don't have to. Okay? So what I also want to turn on here, I'm going to turn on B radius. Okay? So you're going to see that B radius is on. All right? So what I do now is when I click across with the slice brush, you can see what happens. I am now using my draw size, okay, to give me that line in the middle. Again, so here I'm going to undo. Let's go a little bit bigger draw size so you guys can really see what's happening. I'm going to go down the middle. It doesn't matter where. I'm really not concerned about that. And you can see this is being based upon the draw size. You see that inner circle? Okay? That's my fall off. So you can see that's pretty much matching exactly. And what I've done is turn on B radius, which works with all these brushes. So again, under the brush palette, okay, you have the clipping brush modifiers right here. You can see that it's off. It's because right now what brush do I have selected? I have the ZRemesher. This only works with the brushes that you hold down the Control-Shift key with, okay? So when I hold down the Control-Shift key, that's when I'm engaging. So holding down the Control and Space bar will turn B radius on. And then you have polygroup capability and unclipping. So let's just go across this really quick here. So now we have several different polygroups on this cube. Okay? So let's do a little something with panel looping with the ZRemesher. Okay? Because I want to show off the new features here in panel loops as well. So I'm going to turn double off. Let's put a little thickness to this, and let's just keep the default and go ahead and say panel loop. Okay? You can see what we get. We get nice panels here. Okay? For each polygroup. Okay? It has an outer and inner surface point. Okay? Get a nice hard surface. The polygroups are being maintained. All right? So let's try with double on and panel loop that. So what's happened here now is instead of this all still being one piece, it's actually separate pieces. So you can see this top corner is actually one physical piece, just like this bottom corner is one physical piece. So I'm using a feature to select these pieces out really quickly, and you can see now I got the whole middle portion. When I just click on the polygroup, I'm only getting an outside polygroup. and I hit Control-Shift-A, as in select all or grow all, which is in the visibility section right here. You got grow all. Okay? Because I have a little portion selected, we can even get as crazy as like selecting like one face or like a couple faces. And I hit that Control-Shift-A and I get that whole bottom portion. Very cool to be able to do this. I use this a ton. Okay? So let's take a look at what we can do now with the panel loops. So I'm going to turn double off just so we can get an idea of what's happening. Okay? We've had ignore groups. Okay? Now we have regroup panels and regroup loops. So what exactly is happening? So if I regroup panels, I'm going to say panel loop. Okay? You can see that every outside panel now has been regrouped to have the exact same polygroup. You might want to know why is that important. I'm going to show you a combination of this with the ZRemeshers, and you're going to see why this would be important. Okay? So with that button on, again, all we're doing is changing all the polygroups. So you can see this one's green, this one's yellow. We're making them all the same. Now, the regroup loops is doing that to the loops. So you can see all the panel loops now have the same polygroups. So when you select out the panel loops, you're selecting all the panel loops. Now, keep in mind, look what's happening here. See how they're kind of getting rounded here compared to if, let's go ahead and just turn on regroup panels and panel loop. You see it's trying to stay harsh. The reason why that's happening is wherever there's three polygroups meeting, so for example right here there's a somewhat yellow and then there's the yellow and the purple, those are three. Okay? So they're trying to keep this edge harsh, and then also because there's a yellow and a different colored yellow, and then a purple and different color purple here, there's actually 4 polygroups here, it's trying to keep that harsh. So when you turn off that and you turn on the regroup loops, what did we do? Well, we made all of these be the same polygroup right here. So this is one polygroup, okay? And then that's one polygroup. So that's why it gets rounded. There's not a third polygroup there. And it's key to understand this because there's some great benefits to this and what you can do. Okay? So for example, let's go ahead and hit regroup panels. Okay? I'm going to say, and you know what? Let's even make this, let's turn off B radius. And let's just make this kind of like ugly. Like let's make one side very ugly with a slice brush. Okay? Take note that if you guys start here with the slice brush and work out, notice that this polygroup didn't change, but these two did, because I fully went through the polygroup. So again, if I start in this green and go across, you see the curves going completely through the purple. If I let go, only the purple changes polygroup. So what I've been doing is really messing up this and making this just have a bunch of triangles and everything. Okay? So what I'm going to do is, well, I don't want a panel here, but I want nice panels here and here and here. So let's regroup the panels. Let's panel loop that. Okay? Now you can see they're all the same panels. But then some of this has gotten some ugly geometry there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select just this polygroup. Okay? I'm going to go do our ZRemesher. Okay? And I'm going to turn this freeze borders on. So what this is going to do is pay attention to the border edges. Wherever there's a vertex point, the remesher is going to start there and make sure a vertex point goes there. So that when I remesh this, okay, it's going to look at that first and then start going through all the other portions of the cube and remesh that and make that quadrant. And then we're going to lose all these crazy little triangles in here because we're going to get something that's quadrant. Okay? So let that finish up. And that's what the freeze borders is going to do. This becomes very, very handy. In fact, we started making a couple brushes based off this and changed some other things the way they work based upon this new algorithm that we have with the freeze borders. So very cool. Very nice to have this capability. And I'm going to show you guys a real-time example of where I might want this to happen. Okay? So you can see through here, we're trying to make all quads. Okay? So if I even smooth this out, right? See, it's all trying to make quads through here. Okay? So for example, I'm going to open something really quick, this grasshopper that I did, which my workflow was completely DynaMesh, okay, with slice brush and mesh inserts. So this is something I did completely in ZBrush, which I'm going to be rendering out here soon and putting some cool materials on it. But it's all 100% ZBrush, and it's all DynaMesh. Every bit of it is a DynaMesh. Okay, and I'll turn on the poly frame so you guys can kind of see. Like, see how much of a mess that is? So you can see where freeze borders could come in handy, because I can say now, you know what, I want this purple piece, I just want to work on this because I don't like everything that's happening here, because I want to do something with that. I need it to be all nice quadded if I'm going to do something. So now I know if I do freeze borders, and I can say right now that's sitting at 736 faces, you know, I'm going to turn adaptive off, and I'm going to try and start around 2000. But with freeze borders on, it's got to put vertex points here first before anything. Okay? Symmetry on, ZRemesher it. And now it's only looking at that portion, and you see it now I'm getting all nice quadded. And this is still all attached. You guys see that? It's still all very much attached. Okay? So, the question also got brought up about hard surface. Okay? I'll show you another example as well. Here, actually back here, let's show you another example, because I kept going with this, and then I made an eagle. Okay? And again, this is all based upon hard surface. I would show you guys the complete workflow, but we don't have enough time in the webinar to show you the complete workflow, but just show you some examples of what I'm doing through here. Okay? So again, all ZBrush. A lot of fun experimenting. So let's look at, say, something like this chest plate. Okay, and let's solo this out. Okay? You guys can see that there's different polygroups. It's symmetrical. Okay? We have different polygroups. So what I also like to do with this, since it got brought up for hard surface, someone brought up the hard surface capability. Okay, let's now put it at 15,000. Let's put it at, let's say, 8,000. Let's keep symmetry mode on. Let's go ahead and remesh this and see what. And look how fast it's going. Right? This is literally, that took seconds. Right? To do, you can see the result we get. Not too shabby, not too bad. Lost my poly grouping. Not a big deal. What you can do is turn on this freeze groups. Okay, and what it's going to do is pay attention to the poly grouping and making sure that stays nice and harsh along those lines. If you look at this, this is just a disaster through here. Okay, but what you could also do, okay, I have the ZRemesher brush selected right now. I could go to stroke and I could hit this frame mesh and tell it to pay attention to. I'm going to turn off crease because I don't want it to pay attention to creases. I only want it to pay attention to borders and polygroups. And you can see what happens is we instantly put curves around there. So if you remember at the beginning of this, we have this curve strength capability. So I could even turn this up. Let's go all the way to 99 and see what we get and ZRemesh that. So now it's remeshing, but also using the curves. So it's going to try even harder to maintain those hard surfaces. So you can see it's really trying to put more edge looping through here and in the parts where you have some hard surfacing. So this would be great to project all back into. This is something we're also pushing the element to even more to hopefully even make this even a stronger case for remeshing. So this is a workflow that you can use for hard surfacing, right? But if you just even take something as simple as, let's take this kind of, let's always stay simple, just so you guys get it. We'll make this a DynaMesh. We'll make it a little bit lower, 64,000. Let's brush insert, and let's actually go with cubes, right? So I'm going to do symmetrical, okay, cubes. I'm going to turn off solo so it doesn't disappear. I'm going to remesh, and maybe do this, and then remesh. Okay, maybe do a negative, and then remesh. Right, so there's some hard surface here now. Okay, take note that also DynaMesh now retains your poly grouping now. That's new to this version. It was not able to do that before. This is huge for me specifically also for hard surface. So let's see what happens just with this, okay, if we ZRemesh this. So again, we'll just keep it the default, and we'll ZRemesh that, send that off, and we'll see what we get. So you can see it barely changed. So you can see it does a fairly good job as is, right? And if I want to turn adaptive off, and let's get crazy here, and let's go down to 1,000, and let's see what we get. So even at this, it's still trying to maintain those cubes as much as it can. And now we're sending 1,100. If I want to go lower, then that's when I start putting in the decimals. 0.8 would be around 800. Okay, and now I'm gone lower. Okay, so that's in essence the recap of the ZRemesher. But I want to show you a nice little workflow also, because I know we got some people here that are illustrators and whatnot, and I want to show a cool little workflow of taking our ZBrush Pixologic logo, because Pixologic is the name of the company, all right? So I'm going to plane. All right, I'm going to import a texture, which I have my Pixologic logo here. Okay. Then I'm going to go up to my subtools. Okay. And before that, I'm going to go to masking. I'm going to mask by color, mask by the intensity. So what that's done, if I turn the texture off, it's looked at what's black, right? And here I'll make it this way. Okay. What's black, what's the Pixologic, and mask off based upon that. Then I'm going to go into my subtools and tell it to extract. Okay. I'm going to knock my smoothing down to 1. All right. And then I'm going to say, well, let's start with the default thickness and extract. So you can see what we're getting. We're instantly getting geometry based on that. So let's go a little bit higher and extract. That's maybe a little too thick. Let's go a little bit lower and then extract. That looks good. I'm going to accept that. Okay. You can see that there's a masking already on this. Okay. Now what's really nice about this is we get 3 polygroups. So you can see this is the front one, and I'll make them completely different colors. So there's the green. So you can see there's a middle polygroup, a front, and the back polygroup. Now, I'm not sure if people are aware of this. There is another thing that you could do if you guys wanted to. I can import an alpha. And forgive me for my speed. It's just we're running out of time. And I can inverse that. And I can go here to make 3D. And I can say I don't want it to be as thick and a little more resolution. I can make 3D. And you can see we're instantly making geometry based upon the alpha. So this is another thing that you can do. I just like this one because I wanted polygroups. And there's a reason why I wanted polygroups. I kind of want to use the combination of a new algorithm that's in ZR6, which is part of also the panel looping and part of some really cool ways to make hard surface happening. I'm going to show you that. So what I'm actually going to do is I want to put like a little beveling around here, right? So of course we could use panel loops, right, to do that. We could do an experiment and say, hey, let's see what happens to edge loop. Let's put a little thickness. Let's not double it because I want them to be all still connected, and let's panel loop that and see what we get. So we get something like that, right? Nice. And you get a nice little panel in there, right? Very nice. So this is a cool way to play with some lettering, right? Which then, of course, we have this curve to control really how we want the panels to be, right? So we can say that, and we can panel loop that, and now we get completely something different, okay? So forget this, all right? I'm going to do something a little bit different here, okay? So we'll say that's good, and that's good enough for me, and we'll do that. Okay, so forget panels. I'm going to go here to group loops. I'm going to drop this smoothness, okay, down to 1. I'm all right with triangles, no big deal. 4 loops is good. I'm going to group loop that. All that did is added a new polygroup right there, okay? So if you look, we got now the center polygroup, we got this purple polygroup, okay, and we got this green one, okay? I'm even going to take this purple one, and I'm going to shrink it a couple times. So I'm going to do it by holding down Control-Shift, and then just tapping S twice, and then I shrink it. I'm going to say Control-W. That makes it a new polygroup. So now you can clearly see the different polygroups in here. You can see I also have creasing through here. I actually don't want the creasing. I'm going to get rid of that, so I'm going to uncrease all. So you might say, well, why are you caring about this? I'm just giving you guys other workflows that you could definitely do here that you could have some fun with. Watch this. We're going to come down to deformation, and we're going to just hit this polish by feature slash, and we'll go 100%. You can see what I'm going to start to do right in here. You can see I'm starting to actually create a nice little panel. In fact, I'm going to open the circle because there's 2 algorithms here. There's a closed circle and there's an open circle. Okay? So with the open circle, it's going to allow shrinkage, but it's a lot stronger. So watch what happens. So you can see how much stronger. See the nice panels I'm getting here? But it's also shrinking, but you can see how clean that is now. Nice and clean. And I'm only sitting at 64,000 polygons. So for me, this is a great workflow to keep something very low case but look very harsh. So you look at that grasshopper I had, it actually wasn't very high in polygon count. It was only like even total, like I think 2 million. We can load it back up. But now what I'm going to do is let's have a little fun with this. Okay? I'm going to say brush, create insert mesh brush. I'm going to say a new one. So now this is a brush that we have, right? I can say, hey, all right. Okay? Let's put this on something. So let's load that monkey head again. And let's make our monkey a ZBrush monkey. Pixologic mascot monkey. Sorry, Martin, okay, if you're watching this video later on. Okay, so I can draw this monkey Pixologic thing out, right? So you can see what happens. It's kind of sitting there. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm actually going to go into my brush palette. I'm going to go into modifiers. I'm going to turn this projection strength all the way up. So now when I draw this out, okay, the drawing will take a little bit more time out because what we're doing is we're looking at the physical mesh that you're drawing on top of and projecting the Pixologic to wrap, okay, to the head. Now I might say, I don't like how thick this has been, and I messed up from the beginning. Do you really want to go remake this? No. So what I'm going to do for this brush is I'm going to drop this intensity down to 50. Then let's draw this out, and let's see the difference that we get now that I've drawn this out. So this is a cool way. I'm just combining elements. In essence, sometimes I like to describe ZBrush as like an onion or like a cake because it's got layers upon layers. So you can see now that's not as thick as it was previous. So I actually have this Z intensity will control how thick, and my hands are doing like a thickness thing that you guys can totally not see right now, but I can see, so it's lots of fun for me. It looks like two hands talking to each other. Anyways, so that Z intensity controls how thick that Pixologic is going to be, plus I also have a control to how deep in the surface it's going to be, and that's what this depth slider is control. You can see by default it's set to 8. So I can make this go all the way a lot lower. So when I draw this out, it's actually pushing the Pixologic further into the head, right? There's no difference in the Z intensity, but it's thicker in the head, right? So here, if I do this, oops, if I do this, you guys can see, right, what we're doing, okay? So it's very cool to be able to do this stuff. So if you guys think about this, okay, let's go back to this nice one. Watch this, okay? What if I want to make some kind of nice little harsh thing, maybe like I did with my grasshopper, there's a nice line. I can use the crease curve now, and I can say, oh, I want that crease to stop through there, okay? So it's only going through here. So watch what happens when I start using this polish by feature. I'm going to go very extreme so you guys can really see what's happening. You can see that crease is making it nice and sharp, okay? So if I open again my grasshopper, okay? And then we'll use this grasshopper for the tune shading capability because we're down to some minutes. Kevin, do we have more time that we can go with? Because like I'm rambling like the Micro Machine commercial guy right now. I don't think anybody's keeping up with me.
I think people are keeping up. Yeah, go for it. You have my permission. You have my permission. Yes.
Okay. Well, you cut me off when you're ready to cut off. Otherwise, I will keep talking till ends of the day.
Okay, I'll prompt you. No worries.
All right. So if we pull up my grasshopper, okay? I don't know why I like to always say that when I do it. You see this nice line right here, or even right through this piece right here. See this nice line right through here? All I did was use some slicing and some creasing, right, to make that happen. Okay, let me undo that Pixologic that I just put on there. Okay, right through here. Okay, this is all just some nice handy-dandy slicing and creasing, right, to get me those nice, harsh shapes through there. So I'm using a combination of this crease brush and slicing, and I'm using this slider a ton to get that. If you even look at the wings, right, the easiest way that I made the wings, so let's go back to this piece, right, I just literally grabbed, you can grab the curved trim fill, the curved quad fill, right, and I literally just went, wings, right, and then there you go, I got wings. Now, and then I went, okay, how thick do I want my wings to be? I want to be a little thicker, so then I made my brush size a little bit thicker, and then clicked on the curve, a little bit thicker still, and then clicked on the curve. Then I got creative with this, right? So let's kind of recreate these really quick. You see, it's all triangulated. I don't get crazy. I know I have the ZRemesher to fix this down the road, but I'm going to get crazy with this, okay? So I'm going to just delete the curves because we don't need it anymore, and let's separate the wings. So we're only looking at the wings from the grasshopper, okay? then this is where I started going, okay, let's kind of slice this up. Now, I can also, all right, in fact, I separated the wings completely. So let's merge this all together. Okay, so I'm going to split this. See, what I did is I made the quick error. I selected only the one polygroup, and I didn't grow all, so now I got two separate wings. You guys see that? No worries. I'm going to actually merge this down. Okay, so I'm going to merge down so that they're all one piece now, but it's going to be one piece. All right. If I wanted to, I can re-polygroup that all as one, and I can even use a new feature that we have, which is unweld group border. If I click this, if everything's one polygroup, it's actually going to look and find where there is similar vertex points and make sure those are welded. Okay? When it's separate polygroups, it's actually going to unweld them. I can show you guys an example later on. Okay, so I'm going to turn my floor on because this is a little bit how I like to work. Okay? Maybe I want a particular edge. I'm turning my floor on so that you guys can see, all right? Let me turn this up. Okay, the red, the blue, and the green. So X positive, X negative, blue, Y positive, Z positive this way, negative this way, green is Y positive, and then obviously the opposite way. So I'm going to start figuring out what kind of design I want on this. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to use my slice, and I'm going to say I'm going to come up and come across, and then come like this and go straight across. Right? So you can see you're getting the same on both sides. Okay, the reason why I'm bringing up this is when I'm doing hard surface, I like to use this mirror and weld. Because what if I want like a unique angle like this? This brush is not symmetrical, right? So if I mirror and weld it now, boom, it's symmetrical. So when I'm building my hard surface, I know that there's these tools down the road that I can use. And in fact, you can even delete this wing, right? If I want to even completely, let's even turn off symmetry and completely delete this piece, okay? So delete hidden. If I hit mirror and weld, I get that wing back, right? So knowing this is how I'll start to use these tools, okay? But what I'm doing is saying, okay, what I actually want you to do, I want you to take this surface and let's go ahead and panel loop this, okay? I'm going to say double, but I also want it to be appended. So I want it to be an addition to the wings, right? So we'll say, let's stick with that and let's panel loop. Oh man, a little too strong in the polish. So I'm going to close circle. I'm going to drop that to maybe 1, and then I'm going to panel loop. There we go, and that's what I'm getting. See, now I'm starting to get a nice little edge right there, right? Then I can say, you know what, let's put a little more polish in that. And by the way, this polish is the polish that we've been using down here in deformation, this polish by features. That's exactly the polish we've been using, okay? So looking at something like this, maybe I want this to stay nice and harsh, a little more harsh out here, right? This line right in here, okay? Now there's a couple ways I could do this. One thing I could just do, if we want to try the one-click solution in polygroups, okay, I'm going to put this back to the default. We have groups by normals. So you can see what just happened. It literally looked at the normals of this and assigned, okay, that needs a different polygroup, that needs a different polygroup along there, and along there. Everyone see that? That's cool. And watch, right now, because these are different normals, they're different polygroups, right? So all I have to do to make these the same again is once again use my handy-dandy mirror and weld, right? Okay? So I have partially hidden stuff right now. So I need to show my whole wing. It's usually helpful, okay? And then mirror and weld. And then see now they're all identical polygroups on either side, right? That becomes pretty important to understand. Okay? Now, maybe I want to take this little section right in here. Okay? So what I'm going to do, I have symmetry on. I'm going to select out just that. Now I can say I don't want the green, I don't want that blue, and I don't want that, and I'm going to make that a new polygroup. So now I have a nice harsh line there, harsh line there. So now when I go and select this portion now of my wings, okay, and do my panel looping, okay, these are going to start staying more harsh. Now this is where you got to get creative. So see, I'm creating separate panels in here. do I want to now have, okay, ignore groups on and panel loop? So now that ignore groups are on, maybe this is what I'm looking for. So now I got that nice little ridge happening. Maybe I want to make that ridge a little bit more, so I'm going to add a little thickness to this, and then group. So now you can see on group what I'm getting. And if I want to, I can work on just this one, okay? Right? So I can say, hey, let's just work on just, here's this, okay? There's this piece, and now there's this piece, okay? And what's great about this is, oh, I want to make this a little more harsh, a little more smoothed out. No problem. Let's go to deformation. Let's go ahead and start polishing this up. Maybe open circle and see what we get. Boom. Right? You can see how quickly I can make something really harsh. And then I like to switch to my Move Topological brush, okay, so that I can go to really big brush size, and I can move just this piece around. I can say, oh, I want this to actually stand out like this, okay? And then I can say, okay, let's polish that a little bit, let's get back some nice harshness to it, and then boom, there you go. And then I can continue moving this how I want, and it's not affecting this piece, right? Because in essence, this is separate through here, right? That's very cool, okay? So then I like to do things also like this. I like to grab my slice circle, and here's the benefit of not having to worry about visibility anymore. I'm going to say, let's make a circle. I'm going to turn square on so that it stays a perfect circle. Center means the center of the brush. All triangulated again, right? Draw that out, and then there you go. I get a nice cut through there, right? So I can even grab just this portion, right? And I can even say, you know what? I don't want this port right in here, this side right here, okay? So I'm going to say, let's hide that portion. In fact, even all you will go one step further and re-polygroup this. Now watch this. I'm going to go back to my handy-dandy panel loops. I'm going to turn a bend off. I'm going to turn double on. I'm going to turn inner on. Let's see what we get. Oh, boom. Just like that, we got a nice indent into our wing. And then what do we got to do? Mirror and weld. We got it on both sides. Maybe I want to hit it with a little polish again by features just to round that up. Maybe it's a little too much, so I'm going to close circle, right? You can see the cool stuff that you can do here with this, okay? So it's a lot of fun. This is why I had a lot of fun doing this, okay? So let's delete this, and let's look at the whole grasshopper, and let's cover actually turning this into maybe a toon shading looking piece, okay? Before I move on, if there's any questions, Guy, Solomon, Louis, Kyle, whoever's in here that I need to go back, because again, I'm...
Yeah, it looks like they mentioned maybe ending on LK's reminder to you about measuring wall thickness for 3D printing. That was one that he sent in the questions for him.
Absolutely. Let's cover that now. Okay, so wall thickness, okay? There is a create thickness capability with DynaMesh, okay? So I'm not sure if anybody's aware of this, but that's what the create shell is. So for example, if I took, say, something like, let's take the dog, okay? Let's divide the dog up, okay? So he's nice and smooth. And then let's turn him into a DynaMesh, and let's go a little bit higher so we can keep some of the details. That's good enough, okay? Now, if I did something like brush, insert, grab, insert cylinder, held the Alt key down, so it's a negative like that, okay? I'm showing you the polygrouping. Clear my mask and hit this create shell. What ZBrush is doing, it's using the cylinder actually to cut into the surface, and then that thickness there is being controlled by this thickness slider here, because I told it create shell, okay? So now, if I want to know how thick, say that is, and let's say in millimeters, okay? Here's a trick you could do. You're going to need to bring this in from another application, okay? There is no measurements in ZBrush at all as far as the world space goes. ZBrush has its own scaling, okay? However, we don't lose measurements. What I mean by that is if you bring something that's in millimeters or in centimeters or inches or feet, it is inches and feet and everything in ZBrush, okay? So let's say, for an example, you bring in a cube like this. Let's say this cube is 1 millimeter squared. So No matter what way you go, it's always 1 meter. 1 millimeter in length. Okay? What I'm going to do is turn to move mode. It doesn't matter which one, move, scale, rotate. It's all, it's your world. Okay? I know this snaps to vertex points. You can see as I get closer to this vertex point, it snaps. So what I'm going to do is snap from this vertex point to that vertex point. Okay? I'm now going to go to my preferences, and I'm going to go to transpose units. You can see right now it says the calibration distance. That's a fun word to say. Everyone say it with me, a calibration distance. It's one of those tough English words to say, for me at least. I'm going to turn this to 1. And then I'm going to say set units to millimeters. So what I've just done is I've made this measurement 1 millimeter. Okay? And then there's minor ticks. So I can turn this down if I want to, and I can say I want 4 ticks between a major tick. So there's 1 major tick. Okay, so what that means, when you see, if I draw this out, every big tick, that's 1 millimeter. That's 1, like from here to here's a millimeter, from here to here's a millimeter, and then here's a 1/4 millimeters. Right? So the more you add, okay, the more ticks. So if I say, no, I want 8, okay, so now you have 8 in between the large ones. Okay, so now if I go back to my dog, okay, I can snap from vertex point to vertex point with the same thing, right? Looking at this dog, I can say from that vertex point to that vertex point, it's 0.0297 millimeters. It's not really, because this cube's not a millimeter, okay? So it's not really a millimeter. You would have to bring in a cube that is a millimeter, a cube, or a foot, or an inch. Does that make sense? LK, sorry, I don't know your name because you're in here as LK. Does that make sense? So this is a way that you could do this in ZBrush to see your thickness. However, unfortunately, there's no way for you to say what millimeter, inch, or centimeter thickness you want in ZBrush. If you want to export, then you go to your Z plugin, and this is the only spot where there is measurements. So you have inches and millimeters here, right? So if I go to the dog, okay, and I want to export and say millimeters, okay, and I'm going to say update size ratio, so it looks at the dog now, looks at the bounding box, and this is how big the dog is in millimeters right now. So it's 1.5 millimeters high, and then there's your Z, and then there's your X. And then you can export as an FTL, a Vermal OBJ. You can even import FTLs this way as well, for those that are in other applications that export FTL, whether it be scanning data or anything like that. Make sense, LK? I love we use. Okay, Lincoln. Though there's no, you can't export. I'm not sure if I can follow export to match. If you brought in something that's a millimeter, then this dog is going to be in millimeters when you make it, right? So this bounding box is in millimeters. So when we export, it is in millimeters. So if you want the dog to be 1 millimeter tall, you would put a 1 in here, and it is 1 millimeter tall. So that would fit inside the cube as far as height-wise goes. But you see this bounding box is being appreciated. So your Z, which is actually this way, okay, is 1.3156 millimeters, and then the X is 0.3276, which is this way. Right? So this dog would fit inside, the height-wise would fit inside a 1 millimeter cube. Does that kind of explain it, Lincoln? When you hit update size ratio, if you have inches on or millimeters on, it's literally, in essence, creating a bounding box like it does in any other application, looking at it and seeing what that actual mesh is in millimeters or in inches. So you want to click that update size ratio before you even export. And yes, you can shell it without the hole. Okay, so if I wanted to shell it without the hole, when I hold the Alt key, okay, everything gets masked off on the dog, but the cylinder. So what I can do is just move this out, okay, and then I would clear it, and then I would hit Create Shell, and what it would do is delete the cylinder and create the shell system for the person that just asked that. Okay, awesome. All right, so Kevin, how are we doing? Do I have time to go through what one of the requests were for
Uh,
shell rendering, or we're pretty much running out of time?
You know what? If it's quick, that'll be cool. I want to make sure that we have enough time to answer, to cover any of the important questions that you and Solomon feel that we should answer live on air. But yeah, I mean, the rest of the questions
Okay,
we
well, let's
probably
answer the live questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
The questions, guys, that's really important that I haven't been able to keep an eye on the questions. So I know Solomon.
There was one. Yeah, I was going to say there's a couple that you could answer relatively quickly. The snapping with the transpose line. The guy had a question about the white circle, and also projecting a ZRemeshed model or the old model to a ZRemeshed model.
Okay. Tony's asking also, in R6, are negative insert brushes still used? Yes, absolutely, they are still used. Most definitely, I use them a ton to do some cool tricks. So someone brought up this white circle. Let's say if I'm building this guy, and let's say he's going to start being, in fact, you know what? Let's use him. And I want to make maybe a slice with a rectangle, right? So I want this slice, right? You can see how that's going on the surface. Well, what if I want the slice kind of to follow his snout, right? This isn't following his snout. I want it to follow that direction, okay? So what we've added is this little white circle. So what I do is draw out the line. That's the angle I want. I hit that white circle, and boom, he snaps to that angle. He's not moving in physical world. We're not actually rotating for the world space. We're just rotating in canvas view. And then boom, now I have that nice rectangle along the snout. So then it allows me to start giving some really awesome freedom here to say, okay, let's project that in. Well, not project in, let's move that in. And you know what? Let's also bring it in a notch like that and then go in. So I got now this nice little stepping thing happening. I don't know, maybe there's a vent going through there. You know, maybe that's how he breathes because he's a mech dog, right? Also notice how this went in and this went out. Everyone see that? Right? Everyone see how that difference is? Okay, so for example, if I turn symmetry mode on, right? And I go in, see? Now we're good to go. All right, and then I switch to scale, and then I'll turn on this so you guys can see what's happening. I can scale inward, outward, back to move, and push it in. And there you go. Okay, does that answer the white circle question? I'm assuming. And then you said projecting back to detail?
Yes.
Okay. Let's load that monkey again really quick. So again, this is just my preferred workflow that I like to do. I like to duplicate it. Okay. So now we have just this monkey head. We're going to ZRemesh this. Okay. So back to geometry. Then we're going to go, well, how low do we want to go? Let's go a little bit lower. Let's put it at 2,000. Symmetrical, good. I'm going to smooth this out just a touch so it doesn't pay so much attention to that, and we'll ZRemesh that. So the point of ZRemesh is, right, is to get a lower cage. So I duplicate it because I'm going to mess this up. I'm not worried about the sculpt because I have it at on another sculpt tool. Okay? So I'm going to let this ZRemesh. And once I have this remeshed, all we have to do is do a little projection, and then we'll get back our sculpt. So once this is done, I'll show you guys that workflow. Okay, so now we've got this guy with new geometry. Okay, all right, there's my geometry, and here we can, smooth things out here if you guys want to see that. Now I turn on this head. Okay, and this is what I prefer to do. I actually will project all now, even on the low cage. I'll do a project all, boom. Now I'll divide the new mesh once, project all. Then I'll divide the new mesh, project all. And it's just making it faster and even more accurate because it doesn't have such a far distance to look to get accomplished to get the sculpt back. So if I look at this, right, this original one was 700,000, right? And now this guy's sitting at 296,000. So there's still not enough detailed geometry to capture the original details. I'm going to divide one more time. Then I'll turn that on, and then I'll project all. And then now I'm going to have all the detail that I have on this 700,000 one, on this 1 million one, but now I got subdivision levels. And it's all quadded. It's all nice, nicely I don't even know what word I'm trying to say right now. Distributed, nicely distributed polygons. And then there you go. Okay, does that answer the question for how to get that detail back? If you only want to project small details, then mask everything out, but what you don't, mask everything out you don't want to move, okay? And then we'll only project what's not masked. So the question's being asked, is it possible to only project small details? Right? So you can also just note if I masked off this area, okay, nothing here is going to move projection-wise. So you could do that. Okay, and then really quick, the question about toon shading. Okay, there's 4 ways you can kind of do it. The first one is a 3D way. Okay, and what I mean by that, it's not like Photoshop. What Photoshop's doing is taking a 2D image, which we also have, and then just, in essence, posterizing it. Okay, we actually have 3D, where if I turn this on, okay, it's looking at the actual model and normals and posterizing based upon the normals. And then you can play with the roll-off from this as far as the exponent, right? So the number of posterize, in essence, is the number of stepping that you're going to get. Here, let's give him a little color so you guys can really see what's happening, right? We'll go a little bit brighter. Okay, you can see it's automatically getting posterized. Okay, and then we can render that out. Okay, but this is a 3D posterize, so which means if you have polypaint all over this, the posterize is going to be consistent across him no matter what. Compared to the other posterizes that are like 2D, right, which you would do maybe in Photoshop or even here in ZBrush, okay, we also have that. And it's here on the material, okay? So if you open up your diffuse curve, so here we'll make this a little more, have a little more ambient, okay? You have a focal shift, you have strength and everything. Watch, if I turn my strength to 1, okay, instantly posterize. And then the stepping next to it says, how many steps do you want in the posterize? 3 or 2, right? And it's using this diffuse to give me that, right? So there's the posterize, and you can now kick down the ambient, maybe even kick the ambient completely off, right? And then you can focal shift this to change, in essence, even how you want that. Then I can do the same thing on my specular channels. So let's reset the curve. Okay, let's go ahead and make this a strength of 1. And how many steppings? Let's make it 2. Right, and now even the specularity has that. So then I can even play with this a little bit and bring that out a little bit. Okay, and then of course you have specularity colors. Right, so if I say pick a red, this is the material I'm playing with now. Right, colorize specularity. Right, you can see now it's starting to bring red into that. So I could pick a whole nother, even darker blue or something. I can start bringing that, or whatever color you want. Right, and then I can start now bumping up the specularity. You can see that green's coming in now. And then when I render that, there you go. Now I want to make it a little even more toon shady. Okay, so I'm going to go to the mixers where we also allow posterizing here, but I'm actually going to turn on the outline now. So I get kind of looks like drawing, right? And then I have a depth control how deep I want that sketchy look to happen. So then when I render that out, there you go. So in essence, I'm combining the specularity and the diffuse to give me that toon shady look, and then I'm turning on my outline here in the mixer so I can get that sketchy cartoon, like a pen outline first look. Okay? And then the last way, since I've done a render, sorry Kevin, told you got to make me be quiet, is in the filters. Okay, so if I turn a filter on, okay, you have noises here. Okay, so you have different ways to see your noise. You have posterize right here. So you can posterize right the filter itself. Okay, so you have low posterize, extremely high, or you can even say something. Watch this. We could do. Let's do colorize. Let's do crazy red. Okay, let's colorize that up all the way. Let's only put it on him. So I turn the mask up. This is only in the background. This is only on him. Okay. Then I'm going to say edge detection. And now you see only where there's scope of change is where I'm getting this. And now I can say, hey, maybe less of that, a little bit less radius. And now I'm going to drop it down. Maybe well, a little too much on the radius. So this is a way maybe I can put in just some nice little sketchiness to it. Now watch. Now let's change it to maybe a black. Now I got that little, almost like little dots everywhere, right? So that's a cool thing to do. And then here I'm going to throw another filter on. I got the blur on. I'm going to turn it up all the way. I'm going to turn the radius up so you guys can really see what's happening. I'm going to throw some depth on there. So now it's looking at the depth of the mesh. I'm actually going to say I want it to stay nice and sharp here. And I want to get blurry at that eye. So you can see that's getting blurry now. All right, and then I can control how fast that rolls off. Right, and now maybe let's drop the radius so it's not so strong. And a little bit of blur. And there you go. Now I made like a little bit of depth of field happening there. And then I can throw on some sharpen. Then I can throw on some Orton. And then only on him. Right, make it really bright. Okay, so now it's got some Orton feel to it if I wanted to. This is just for days I can play with this stuff. I could do so much crazy stuff with this. Okay, play with your saturation, your fade. I can say colorize, and let's put it in black. All right, let's go 100%. He's completely black. Now if we turn depth on, now he's kind of sitting in a scene, right? And this is all filtered, so this is instantaneously happening. Okay? Hopefully that helps with the auto-tune shade. Man, my verbiage today is just fantastic.
Yeah.
When you saving renders for presets, I see that Solomon already got it. Just save a project. If I save this project, when I load it, it's all going to load the exact same way. I just got to save a project. That's the benefit of saving a project over a tool. A project saves everything, your render settings, your lighting, all that stuff. Okay? I actually prefer to save projects now over none. All right, I'm sure Kevin wants to get going because I'll talk for another 3 hours. Is there any, Solomon, that I missed?
No, you got all of them.
Kevin, anything else that you want to add or any?
No, I think I'm pretty good. I don't know if there's an auto-tune feature, but we'll see what's up. Is there? No.
Is there a what?
That's a great idea.
Auto-tune feature, yes. That'd be nice. I thought that's what I heard. Okay.
That'd be nice.
Cool. All right. I guess I'll just transition back to me, and we'll just end this thing. Some people have to go back to work. Tal, I heard you got to go back to work. I hope it's not 2 a.m. over there. So it's still party time in Hong Kong, though.
Yeah, Hong Kong. Are you awake? Who was it? I don't remember who it was.
I forgot his name. I feel bad.
I forgot.
I'll find him.
So bad. I'm such a bad presenter.
Wait. I think he's back.
Peter. Hey, Peter. Go kick.
Thanks, Peter, for joining us. Okay. All right. I'm ready. Moving on. Let's see. Cool.
He's sleeping.
Sleepy. Cool. Okay. Let me know if you guys can see my slides. I think you can. Paul, can you see this?
Yep.
Awesome.
ZBrush with crazy host Paul Gaboury. When do you have it?
Cool. Yeah, so I want to thank you all for joining us. Paul, Solomon, thank you for being out there in the sun, enjoying this, having a presentation. Very detailed today. This is going to be up today. I'm going to upload it to our Vimeo and YouTube channel, so you're more than welcome to rewatch it there. Thank you. So thank you slide. But yeah, I do want to mention that Novedge webinar series is brought to you by Novedge.com. As one of the largest online design software stores, we offer a huge assortment of software solutions that cater to virtually every designer need. If you're interested in picking up a digital version of ZBrush 4R6, you're more than welcome to visit our website. Feel free to contact our sales specialist, Bob at Novedge.com.
And at a discount.
And at a discount, yes.
Look, it's $6.75, guys. Normally it's $7.75. And don't leave. I'll share my email address. Sorry, Kevin, to interrupt.
No. Oh, yeah. I'll definitely share that too. Which perfectly. Yeah. So as Paul said earlier, there's tons of information, tons of resources. Especially if you just picked it up, you're new to ZBrush. Head on over to the community page. I think Paul is there too on the forums. I hope so.
I am on the forum. Yes.
Cool.
I'm because this is very creative. Gabo 1991, which in essence is the first 4 letters of my last name. Very creative. When I made that though like 8 years ago.
Well, I mean, based on today's presentation, I would imagine that it would have been Mecha 426 or something, or yeah, Grasshopper. But yeah, hey, how can the attendees contact you guys for if they have any other questions or if they want to follow up on today's presentation?
Okay, everyone ready for this? Get a paper and pencil out. Okay, get a pen, whatever you prefer.
Or if you happen to be on a computer.
Me at Solomon@Pixologic.com.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Right. We'll get Solomon, and you won't get me. No, but seriously,
that's absolutely true.
It's just as simple. It's Paul@Pixologic.com. So wrap your brain around that one there.
Cool. Good to go. And yes, so we have tons of questions. I'll try to filter them as best as I can. I know that we didn't answer all of them, but I'm going to forward it to Paul and Solomon, and then we'll try to share that through our blog.novedge.com, and we'll make sure to get all of the answers as best as we can. Paul, so I did mention that earlier, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you did.
But yeah, so a lot of our registrants are Rhino users as well, and then there's a lot of jewelry designers. The previous webinar had attendees asking about how you can transition the workflow between the two programs. So if you guys are interested, we have a forum, an online discussion group at rhinojungle.com, so I encourage you guys to check that out as well. Yeah, next week we have a webinar. If you happen to be an architect or a visualizer, this is a good chance to learn about the new Arlantis 5. We have Objects Online General Manager Chris Stringer who will be joining us today to talk about the new release, this presentation is going to be a day after its new release. So check it out at novedge.com/webinar/85. And as I mentioned earlier, today's recording will be converted and uploaded by today's end at vimeo.com, I'm slurring my speech too, /Novedge, and also at youtube.com/Novedge. So check it out there. Like us, follow us on Twitter at Novedge, and like us on Facebook and Google+. If you're a design professional, you should be a design professional or illustrator or a sculptor and so forth. Paul, do you have anything you want to say to the attendees before we sign off on this?
Yeah, since there's jewelry people, we're obviously very extensively being used now in jewelry. All the major companies and stuff are actually using us. I know someone's asking for a Rhino ZBrush webinar. I know there might be one of me talking about some jewelry and showing I actually bring in a Rhino piece in the ZBrush and show you how to convert it into a sculptural-friendly mesh. I think there's one out there. I don't remember what it was. I have done so many webinars, I don't know which one. But Michael, you can also just email me, and I can answer your questions.
Would this possibly would this be at ZBrush.com too, or maybe? Well, I mean, check it out, guys. I'd be definitely checking it out.
Yeah, we do have some jewelry stuff on Pixologic.com in the Z Classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
We have some more exciting stuff coming down the pipeline.
Cool. Yeah, so stay in contact. Please keep in touch. Everybody, signing off. Ciao, and thank you.
Ciao.
Thanks, Paul.
Yep,
Ciao.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys. This is nothing without all you guys actually showing up to the webinar. Otherwise, it would have just been me, Kevin, and Solomon talking to each other and making really bad jokes. So
yeah.
Thanks for coming and being an audience.
Cool. All right. See you guys later. Bye.